The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Also present is Steve Rice from the Fall River Community Media, who is operating the camera, and Denny Cosmo, director of the Joseph A. Marshall Veterans Center at Bristol Community College. I am interviewing Drew Lindo on Friday, May 9th, 2025, at the Fall River Media Center at Bristol Community College in Fall River, Massachusetts. I am Michael Stender, representing the Student Veterans of America chapter at Bristol Community College and the Joseph A. Marshall Veterans Center. All right, Drew, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you from?
I grew up in Dighton, about 10 minutes from here. I was born in Attleboro, so I've grew up around this area my entire life. So I'm pretty much a regular around here. So.
What year did you decide to join the service?
I joined in 2003. It was kind of a, what do I do with my life now that I only did 1 year of college at Bridgewater State. Knew that it wasn't for me, so I just kind of was working my job part-time, figuring out what I want to do with the rest of my life, and kind of got the idea of, hey, maybe I'll join the military. Started checking out all the branches and decided to join the Army.
This was a post 9/11 in 2003. Did you see like a big uptick in people going in at that time? Like, were you inspired by those events at all?
I don't think it was a big inspiration. I mean, it was always in the back of your mind, but I don't think it was the driving force that I would say to be like, I'm going to join the military. I mean, it was also 2 years after that, so we had kind of the initial, like, let's go do this right now in 2001, I'm sure. But I mean, in mine, it was still a good amount of people joining the military. I had a really big class when I joined in 03, so.
And what branch did you go into?
I went into the Army.
And what made you choose the Army over like all the other branches?
Honestly, I just liked the way that they did things. I mean, like I said, I checked out all the branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, but something about the Army just kind of said, okay, maybe I'll do this.
And family and friends, they were okay with you going in, or was there a lot of like criticisms or just concerns at that point?
I think my family was more like, maybe this is like a phase, maybe he'll back out, because I remember I joined the DEP program before you ship out.
Yeah.
I think it was like May or June, so I had about 5 or 6 months to be like, maybe this isn't for me, and I think maybe they were like, maybe my parents were, maybe he'll back out, maybe this won't, work for him. But the more and more I just went and hung out and did like the PT drills and stuff like that, I was just gonna go, and my parents were fine with it. They understood that after a while that this is something I want to do, and they were behind me all the way.
Where'd you go to boot camp?
I went to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri.
And how was that experience for you, like coming out of Bridgewater State?
It's eye-opening. It's just, you mentally can kind of prepare for it, but there's nothing like being there, on the trucks or on the buses, as soon as those doors open, you're getting screamed at and getting yelled. Then you realize, oh, I'm into it now.
One thing that a lot of people get out of boot camp when they go in is they always remember their instructors. Do you remember your drill instructors at all to this day, or learn anything from them?
I remember what they look like, and I remember I don't remember the names, but I remember like everything that they taught me was a very good experience. You start at the beginning of boot camp like, why am I learning this? Why am I doing this? But then by the end of the 11 or 12 weeks, you're like, okay, this is why they're doing this, to kind of break you down and build you back up as a team unit and stuff like that. But I remember no specific names, like I said, but it's something that sticks with me.
And what MOS were you assigned with?
I was a 14 Romeo Air Defense Bradley crew member.
All right, so when you go to boot camp and you go training right after that, were you excited to like learn that job like right away, or like were you kind of like, okay, is this really what I want to do as far as like MOSs go?
I was interested to actually get hands-on with the Bradley vehicle and see what it was all about, because again, it's an armored vehicle, so you're like, oh, this should be interesting, and you're mainly doing it's more maintenance on the vehicle. You're learning how to take care of the vehicle, drive the vehicle, break down track if you blow a track tread, and then you do learn the weapons on the vehicle just in case. But I mean, it was nice to get hands on, but it was also nice in the back of my mind to get out of Missouri in February and be in Texas. So that was a nice jump in climate.
So a good transition overall.
Yes. Yeah.
When doing this training, did you have an idea of like when you were going to get shipped out overseas at that point, or did that come kind of later on?
It kind of came later on. I think my training for AIT was 11 weeks, I think it was. So maybe another, 3 months after. So by April, you're getting ready, and then you kind of get yourself ready, like, okay, now what am I going to do? And hopefully I go to a good, base or get stationed somewhere really well that even if it's overseas, because a lot of people, they were getting stationed stateside. I was lucky enough to go from Fort Bliss, and they said, you guys, they actually changed our orders. We were supposed to go to Fort Stewart, and then at the last minute they changed us and said we're going overseas to Korea. So that was an interesting way to transition.
So that was your first experience going overseas, was
Yeah.
Korea, and what was that like?
Korea was nice. For the time I was there, we were there, I think we got there in like April or May, and then they have a climate just like ours. So you're muggy, it's warm in the summertime, it's cold in the winter, snowy. But it was nice when I got over there. It didn't last forever, but it was good to be over there. We had a good time.
When you were over there, like, obviously North Korea was always like kind of like the little brother, just always kicking you, trying to like start a stir or something. Did that ever be a concern to you guys while being over there, that something might have happened because they're right next door, or was it more just like they're there?
They're there, and it's always in the back of your mind, I guess, because you do readiness drills at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, where they just sound the alarm, and you'd have to go to your like stations around wherever camp you were stationed at, just in case they decided to invade at some point. But it's an experience that I enjoyed. I mean, I also went up to the DMZ to see how things are there, and it's just something that I was 20 years old, so you're like seeing the world for the first time, and it was interesting to see how things are done over there as opposed to they're done here stateside.
Can you go over some of those like cultural differences?
It's just, I was more impressed at the discipline, because I mean, I think the South Korean, the soldiers have to do 2 or 3 years mandatory in the military, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they had to, unless they were in college. So seeing how well disciplined they were is like night and day, because I mean, we're disciplined when you want to do your job, but I mean, it's like anything else. You're letting kids out and they're away from their families for the first time. I knew I was 20 years old. I was ready to, I didn't really have that big of a college experience, so this was kind of my college experience. So when I was off from work, I wanted to have fun, party, drink, have fun. But seeing them, they barely did that. They were all business.
So you ever like get to sit and like talk with them and kind of like see those differences just through like conversations, or?
Yeah, I mean, they spoke really well. Like, their English was very well. I mean, they talked to us, and they would take us out into the towns. And if you were trying to buy something over there, say you were trying to buy like a cell phone, you'd always want to go with some of the guys from the military, just because they try to rip you off. You're American. You don't speak the language. So it was nice to have them and have the conversations, and you'd have like, you realize that they're not too much different from us. It's just kids that are trying to grow up and do something with their lives.
Did you make any like friends out of that, like guys you keep in touch with to this day from the South Korean army? Or?
No, it was just when you're there, you're just helping each other out.
That's pretty cool. How long were you there?
I was there for about 4 months before we got orders to deploy to the Middle East, and then that was a big shock because we were supposed to be there for a year, and then next thing you know, you're getting ready to deploy, so you're training, doing all this stuff. You're going from working a regular job Monday through Friday over there to we're going to be in the field for a month or two, getting ready to deploy. So it's a shock.
Was it kind of like you got a little comfortable in South Korea just
Yeah.
because like it was basically a 9 to 5, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, actually we're going to go do what we're supposed to be doing out in the Middle East?
That was the biggest change, because we were there for a little while, so you're comfortable, you're letting your guard down, like, oh, I'm going to be here for a little while, and then all of a sudden you're like, everything changes and it just flips on the drop of a dime.
Where in the Middle East were you deployed to?
I was in Iraq. We were there. I was lucky enough, like I was telling you earlier, we were deployed to the Iraq, and then half of our unit was there. I was only there for 6 months, and half of our unit got split up. The half of them stayed there. Half of them we got sent back stateside. So I got back to Fort Bliss. So I was lucky enough to come go back to the AIT unit that I just graduated from like a year and a half ago. So it was nice to see that when I came back stateside.
For the 6 months that you were there, can you describe that, like the differences, like stuff that you may have seen, anything?
It's more, there was not a lot of stuff there because this was again 04, 05. There's not a lot of stuff there. I mean, I'm sure I hear stories now from people that are like, oh, it's, you know, we have Wi-Fi and all this stuff. We didn't have like anything. You were just trying to keep yourself occupied when you were over there because there was a lot of downtime, but then when you're out for a week or 2, 3, just trying to keep yourself sane and like just keep normal conversations because you couldn't really talk to your family back then. If you were lucky enough to get to talk to them, it was for a few minutes. So it was a completely different where I was coming from in Korea where I could call my family every day if I wanted to. And it's just another kind of culture shock.
Right. Did you see any combat while you were out there for those 6 months?
Yeah, very little. I mean, there was a few firefights and stuff like that here and there. And again, it's interesting to go through that because again, you do your training and you prepare yourself mentally for it, but there's nothing like when you're there in the middle of it. And lucky enough, I didn't see a ton. When I was back at Fort Bliss and the rest of the unit came back, I saw people that came back and they had really bad PTSD, and I was just like, I missed out on that, and I'm kind of glad for it, I guess.
Of course.
You know, because I see what they went through, and I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, during those like combat experiences, are you comfortable talking about like some of those firefights, or do you want to skip over that?
I mean, it doesn't bother me. It's I basically don't want to like ruin everything by saying like, you know, it was 20 years ago, so I just try to compartmentalize everything, like where it's there, it's done with, but I mean, I don't know what else you want to be said about it.
Yeah, no, moving forward with that. So you were there for 6 months and you came right back.
Yes.
And with that new role, what were you doing?
I was surprised, like I said, I was back in the AIT unit where I had just graduated from. So it was kind of a shock to see the other side of the coin instead of I was working with the drill sergeants, most of whom I had just went through all the training with, so I got to know them and they recognized me, but you're not getting yelled at, you're getting treated like an actual individual person, you're not getting treated like, getting yelled at every day, do this, do that. So it was nice to see that. I was working in the S1 for the I was going to say battery because that's what our unit was called, but the battalion, and I was working for the lieutenant colonel, the sergeant major, and I was driving them around, and I was doing mail, and I was working in the S1 office.
So driving around with a colonel and all that, is it like a lot of pressure, or is it really just like they're another human being?
I think at the beginning you think it's going to be a lot of pressure, but then it depends on the kind of rapport you have with them, because I mean, you're kind of driving with them whenever you're driving with them whenever you need to go somewhere, and you just develop that rapport where it becomes comfortable. You know, you give them the respect that they deserve and they've earned. But I mean, they just treated me like a normal person. They never yelled at me or talked down to me or anything like that.
Do you have any like fun moments? Maybe you guys were driving around together, like anything kind of silly or like just things you could kind of laugh at?
Usually because when you have the colonel or the sergeant major, you put the plates on the car, and you know, I remember being in the car with the colonel and the sergeant major, and we're driving around, and somebody didn't salute the vehicle, and the sergeant major made me stop, and he got out and was like, you see the plate on that car, you salute that vehicle. It was just funny to be like, I can't believe you just did that.
Because there you are driving the vehicle
Yes.
and just watching all this.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, I'm stopping.
So like you did that, did mail, anything afterwards? Like
I did all that for a year because I had about a year or so left on my contract, and I was trying to explore if I wanted to re-enlist or not. Nothing was really catching my eye as to I want to do this to re-enlist. They were pushing EOD very much hard at that time, and I was like, well, yeah, it's a $100,000 bonus, but you have to go through the school for a year, and it's something I didn't really want to do. So I just kind of kept busy. They kept sending me to soldier boards to get knowledge up, and I went to airborne school for the 3 weeks there, and just to go through that as an experience.
Could we talk about airborne school for a little bit, like that whole experience?
That was more fun to me because it was just a lot of running, and you're doing something that nobody really, select few people want to do, but they don't know why. You're just I don't know why I want to jump out of a plane. But at the time, it seemed like it was a good specialty school to go to, and maybe I would try it. So it was just another school that I enjoyed it. I mean, it was 3 weeks of running, and you're completely learning how to not hurt yourself when you fall. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, like, can you remember like that first jump that you did and what that was
It's
like?
nerve-wracking because, again, they prepare you very well, but nothing prepares you when you're up in the plane ready to jump out, because you're just like, oh, it's real at this point.
Like, how many times does it take the jump out during this training where you're like actually comfortable with it and where it becomes like second nature?
I felt like the first or second time, because you do 5 jumps, but the first or second time, once you're up there, it's just kind of, okay, we're doing this again. This is it. I liked it, and it's very peaceful when you jump out of the plane. The time you get from out of the plane to the ground, it was very nice. I enjoyed that part of it.
Just kind of like seeing everything around you
Yeah.
and like being like, wow, I'm doing this.
Yeah,
Like, this is
it was.
real.
I enjoyed it very much, and again, it's something that not a lot of people that I knew or had contact with did, and it's fun to be like, oh, I did that. So it was a different kind of experience for me. So
Yeah. So like you did that, went to schools for like the latter year of your career, right?
Yeah.
So when you got out, did you know like you wanted to get out at that point, or was there other things in the way?
it was, again, I wanted to stay in, but it just, none of the schools caught my eye. It was more, I was looking at, like I said, EOD school, and then I was exploring other opportunities that I didn't have, I guess, or didn't have my eye on when I went through originally, when I took the ASVAB test. And I took it again, actually, to kind of boost my score up a little bit so I could have more job opportunities, but nothing was really there. Like, I didn't want to be like a military intelligence. I didn't want to do any of that. I just kind of was like, nothing's really there for me. So I said, I guess I'll just come home.
And so like when you came home, what was your transition like?
When I got home, it was good to be back home and see all your friends and family again, but I was very lazy at the time because I was I want to relax for a little while. I'd been on the go for about 3 years now, and I just kind of wanted to relax and stay home and not do much for a little while. But after a while, you kind of realize, I can't do that. I have to pay bills, and I have this. So I went back and I got my old job that I was working at. I worked at a grocery store, and they were lucky enough to keep my pay and all my seniority for work for me. And I just moved on with that for a while until I kind of was like, I need to find something else. This isn't going to sustain my life for a while.
It's kind of tough to find a job in a position where your career doesn't really translate well into the civilian field from the Army too.
Also very true, because I'm working on vehicles I'm putting groceries on the shelf. There's not really a lot of common threads there. So, and I didn't have a degree, so I knew that I didn't want to go back to school though. I just kind of wanted to work. I didn't want to go to school, sit in classes again, and then get a degree. That just wasn't for me. I kind of realized that early on.
Like during that transition, did you get involved with like the veteran community at all? Like with the VFW or the American Legion, were they very helpful?
When I was 23 at the time, I didn't do any of that at the time. I just worked. I didn't get involved with like the VFW till the past like year or two. So I'm 41 now. So I was 23 then. I had no idea. I had no interest in being like, oh, that's VFW. That's for old people, But then now I see it, and I love the way things are with the VFW. I love going there, talking to all the guys and girls that go there, and just trying to do what I can when I can.
What do you think is the best way to help out, like getting involved with these programs like the VFW or the Legion? Is it just like talking, like hearing other stories, or like representing the community in a certain way?
I think it's going to these places and facilities and talking to whoever. Like, we have good people that are in charge down there, and they want to bring in this more younger generation, because again, like I said, I'm 41. They want to bring in like the people who are getting out of the military now that are maybe like 22, 23, because you think of the VFW, you think of maybe the Vietnam era or even older, because there's plenty of older members there, and they're great, but they don't want to do as much programs, and they don't want to be involved in the community as much as the younger guys want us to be. And that's good that they're doing races and fundraisers and all this stuff that is interesting to people, and it gets a lot of the people to come out and help.
That's good. Do you have any like difficulty with the VA, like claiming benefits or anything like that?
I haven't even done anything with the VA, honestly.
Really?
No.
Do you want to start?
I honestly do, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with my job, I can go through the VA pretty well. I have a state job, so I can go through the VA. And I have friends that work for the VA doing veterans assistance, but I just haven't had the time to get in touch with them.
This whole time, so like, you knew it was always there.
Yes.
But it just never.
never thought about it, but it's always in the back of my mind.
Yeah, like, what kept you like busy though? I mean, just working?
Just working, like I said, and then, I mean, I'm just going through the motions, but then I realized the money that I was making at the grocery store is not enough to sustain whatever I was doing, and I just eventually, my friend works for the Department of Corrections and was like, hey, you might want to look at this to make some decent money. And then I did that in 2013 at the end of towards the middle of the year. No, it was 2014 because I got into the Department of Corrections in November of 2014, so it had to be in spring that we took the exam and I got in. And our entire class was all veterans.
Wow.
And so it was nice to have that. But it's also a familiar atmosphere. So you're going through their academy and you're getting yelled at like basic training or any other school like that. But it's not as invasive as that because we're coming from military. So I remember all being like, they think that they're like yelling at us and it's doing something, but we've had it 10 times worse in our basic trainings and stuff like that.
Do you keep in touch with any of those guys to this day?
From
Like either like the training for that or even going back to the Army, like do you keep in touch with anybody still?
I still keep in touch with a few guys from the military, very few. I mean, they're all spread out. I have like one or two of friends that are in New Jersey, so they're down there. They're kind of close, but we haven't seen each other yet. I think he came up here once. And that was it. And then other than that, I mean, it's just the people that you go through the academy with, the Department of Corrections Academy. I work with a bunch of them now, so we still kind of we work together, so we're there all the time together. We're just...
Like, with meeting all these guys from like different branches, right, and even the ones you've served with before, do you think it'd be a good idea to kind of bring them all together for the veteran community and kind of like use these stories and use all these different experiences to like help out anyone else that like has had trouble with the VA or doesn't know about programs like the Legion or the VFW?
I think it is, because I'm always telling people now that I know about it, because like I was saying earlier, I lived in Swansea for 8 years and I had no idea that a VFW was right around the corner from my house. So I like to tell people, hey, go to this VFW, or people that even if they don't live in this area, if they have a VFW or if they're going to get involved in the VA somehow, just go to it, because again, I have friends that work they do veterans assistance, and I just haven't had time to do it. But I always tell them, I'm like, go take care of this, do what you got to do.
Let's take care of it, do what you got to do, right? I mean, that's kind of the motto nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Like, any advice you would give someone going to the military now, would it be like along those lines or something a little bit different?
I don't know. I mean, I always tell people if they're thinking about joining the military, it's just think about it. Like, make sure it's what you want to do 100%, because once you get in there, you can't really back out.
Do you feel like there's a lot of like generational like differences between like the era you went in and those guys who grew up like watching 9/11 on TV to now where it's a very big like social media like controlled generation?
I think it's night and day, because I mean they have access to so much more stuff than we did. I mean, we had cell phones and stuff like that 25 years ago, but it's nothing to what it is now. So I don't know how. I mean, I think back going to school, you didn't have a laptop, you didn't have any of this stuff, and then you just had a notebook. And now these kids are going to, they have laptops and all this social media stuff. I think it makes it easier to do more exploring and find out what branch you want to explore if you want to join the military, as opposed to you had to actually physically go out and go talk to people and go do this. And that's what I did. I went to every recruiting station. I talked to all the recruiters, and I mean, they're going to make it sound like $1 million regardless, because they want to get you. But just make sure it's what you want to do. I mean, if it sounds like it's something that you wouldn't want to do, then don't do it.
Yeah. When you were talking to all those recruiters, do you remember like any like hearing their stories and being like, I don't believe this, or maybe they were kind of convincing at one point, but like you chose Army?
Yeah. I don't think it was, I don't believe it. I think it was me more like, I want to believe it, because I just wanted to do something different with my life, because I was so like bored and stuck, I would say. And I just wanted to do something different. So I think it was more of a exciting opportunity for me to explore what was going on.
When it was all like over, right, end of service, like how did that feel? Like officially like done?
It felt good. I mean, again, I like I said, I was trying to stay in, but I just couldn't find myself any opportunities that I wanted to do to stay in. That was nothing that was worth my while. But when I got out, I mean, I was home. I got out in November of '06, so I was home for the holidays, and that's kind of a good thing to be home for. So I had Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all rolled into one, And that was a good time to come home. I think if it was in like the middle of the year, it kind of would have been a little less like exciting to be home. It would have been like, okay, I might be on leave for another week or two before I go back or whatever. Like that's your mind state. But now you're like, I'm home and I have to do something.
You got your family and friends all right there because everyone's home for the holidays, so it makes it a lot easier.
And then after the holidays are over, you're like, okay, this excitement's down again. I have to find a job, or I have to do something with my life. I can't just stay home and watch TV all day.
Do you think that's the biggest challenge a lot of veterans go through now?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's different for everybody, but for me, it was just, I can't be lazy. Like, my biggest thing was, don't be lazy. My dad would make sure every day, he's like, did you go talk to this job? Because there were other job opportunities I was exploring at the time, I think. There wasn't, like, exciting jobs. It was more like, oh, maybe I'll work for Comcast, or maybe I'll do this. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go, work in an office building or whatever. But my dad was always kind of there to be like, make sure you're keeping busy, because the worst thing you want to do is get, bored and lazy, because he's like, then that's just not going to be good for you.
And same thing with like being in the service. Like, if you get too comfortable, do you find that like it does get kind of boring and you do get kind of lazy, and then when stuff does happen, you're not prepared?
I mean, I think they try to prepare you as well as you can. And I mean, for me, I know that, again, when I was stateside, it's just like a Monday through Friday job. So you're Monday through Friday, you're doing PT. I was working in the office just sorting mail, so it's redundant and it gets boring, but you kind of have to make it fun for yourself and kind of remind yourself what you're doing there.
Do you attend any reunions at all with anyone that you've served with? Like, do you guys get together?
I haven't gone to any.
Nobody
from our units really, like, I don't know if I'm like in with the right people or not, but nobody, we're friends on Facebook, we don't really communicate, but it's not like they're going out of their way to be like, hey, let's all get together and do this. It's not. They've never done anything like that.
Would that be something you'd be interested in starting up, maybe? Like reaching out, maybe like a barbecue like once a year?
Just to like
catch up?
I wouldn't say no to it at all.
Yeah. Overall, like, how would your service how do you think the service that you did for the country affected your life? Even like fast forward 20 years later. I mean,
I look at it now and I think there's a lot of things that I took for granted, again, as you're a kid, so you got to grow up. But I look at it now and I'm like, I think to myself every day, I'm like, well, I wouldn't have a job if I was in the military. I wouldn't have a house. And those are two of the biggest things that, for me, obviously as an adult, you want to have independence, and without a job and without a house, you kind of can't have that independence. And I am lucky that I was able to get all that from being a veteran. Right.
And then, is there anything you want to add that we haven't covered yet? Like anything on your mind?
Honestly, not really. I mean, I'm glad I got to do this stuff, and like I said, I'm glad I found the VFW and stuff like that to get into programs or do stuff like this where I get the opportunity to talk about things that I normally wouldn't talk about, other than maybe with like some close friends or family.
Which program was the most helpful for you, do you think?
I don't know, honestly, because I'm just really starting to get involved with all this stuff, because like I said, I've only been with the VFW for less than a year.
Yeah.
But as we're doing stuff, and like if we're doing fundraisers, like I said, if we're doing like cookouts or anything like that we can do to help the community, I try to make myself as available as I can. My work schedule isn't the best right now, but I do have weekends off, so I can kind of, if anything happens on the weekend, I can kind of make that happen, and I try to be there for whatever they need me to be there for.
That's good. That's really good. Do you find that like you have like the older generations, right, mixing with the younger generations, combine them all together? Do you think that's going to help in the end?
I think so, because even just talking to the people down at the VFW, when they're introducing me or any of the younger members to the older members, like I see it like where they're very interested to like talk to you and see what your experiences were like, and I love to hear their stories, because I feel like their stories are way more interesting than the stuff that we're going through, but they, on the opposite side, find our stories more interesting than what they went through.
Because it all changes.
I think it's just a generation.
Because everything changes. Like, the guy who served in Korea, maybe in the same kind of platform or job that you could have had, did it way differently. Mm-hmm. And when you cross compare, it's a great conversation.
Yeah, I love hearing all the stories. I'll sit there and listen to them talk for hours. I don't care.
And literally, like, you can make their day just by like hearing them out. And like, even if it's a different job than you had, you can still like,
They're excited just to see all these newer members, I think, coming in and just seeing what we can offer and bring to this newer generation of like people coming in. And I think they enjoy it.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's probably the younger generation. I think it's better to like help out the older ones, because like they literally want people to come in, like you said, right? Do you feel like there's a lot of resistance from people who are maybe getting out right around now, after the COVID days, to joining these organizations because there's just no interest.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly can't understand. It was bad enough to try and work in a prison during COVID, let alone, I think about it now, it was 5 years ago, but I don't even want to understand what it was like to be in the military during COVID, because it was probably one of the worst experiences, just being where I was working, and it's with all these restrictions and everything, and it's just, you're dealing with a completely different type of person as opposed to the military. I don't even know what they could do. I wouldn't have wanted to be somewhere wearing a mask all day. I didn't want to do it here wearing a mask, let alone being in the military doing it 24/7, all this stuff. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely different. Like you said, generations change night and day, so all these little adjustments or differences, but it is fun to compare them to back then when different things were going on,
Oh, yeah, 100%. I just think back to, you can look back at, I was 2003, if you look back to the Gulf War, that was only 10 or so years before me, and it's completely night and day through what I went through.
All right, Drew, any last words that you want to say to anyone watching, or message, or anything at all?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to come down here and talk, and hopefully we can do more things like this.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This has been awesome.